Hello, and welcome to the Semester 2 recap video, where I'm going to do an update, kind of like a lot of my other update videos, about just the things that I did in the second semester, mostly just related to my classes, and a couple other things that have come up. And yeah, so we'll get started. So first I'll go through my classes, and so the first class is the one that you guys already knew about, the one where I was continuing my project on Cordoba. By the way, I decided to do manual props instead of editing videos because I'm better at that, even though it's probably much less efficient. But for me, it's just what I felt like doing. So yeah, so the Cordoba project that I've been working on this whole year. So I basically have an article length paper on that, and if you guys want more information on that or any of the topics I mentioned in this, just let me know in the comments, and I can make like a longer video explaining just that topic or just the project I did in an individual class. But for the sake of this recap video, I'll probably keep it relatively brief. So I did have a few different and expanded conclusions that I probably haven't mentioned on the YouTube channel before for that project. But I'll mention that a little bit more toward the end of the video. All right, so then the next class that I wanted to mention, well, actually I was going to mention two jointly. So I took a class on comparative citizenship, which had a much more modern focus, but still had some interesting things. And I took another class called social construction of space. So as you probably remember, if you saw my other update videos from the beginning of the semester, so these two classes, one about citizenship and one about the social construction of space. So basically, I ended up completing the papers for those classes. The semester technically ended, or the last day that we were supposed to technically be able to turn things in was May 12th. So I finished the papers for both of those classes in like the first 2 weeks of May. And in the citizenship class, I basically, for my final paper, compared some of the themes that we'd been talking about in the class as a whole with a few books that were covered, not exactly citizenship specifically, but kind of some themes related to citizenship in the late antique period, the time period that I study. So that was that paper, and that's the one I was doing the video game week for. So I kind of mentioned that already in that video. And then the social construction of space, I went ahead and started working on another project. So it wasn't really a project, but the paper was kind of a source analysis of secondary sources of ideas that could relate to something that I want to do in the future, which I'll mention more when I talk about a few other things, maybe in a different video talking about my possible dissertation topic. So that's those two classes, and the interesting part about those two classes, I think that I can combine them to make a kind of part of my degree. So I have to do a major field as well as two minor fields. My major field is late antiquity. My two minor fields, they have to be, one of them has to be like a theme. So I'm thinking I could do something about like community and social belonging, and that both of those classes could come together and constitute the two classes required for that kind of minor field. So that's good, and you might hear more about that kind of idea if you keep watching these update videos or other videos that I make. So then the fourth class was about the materiality of manuscripts, and that was the medieval seminar for this semester that I took. So materiality of manuscripts. And yes, so for that class, I actually only just turned in the paper yesterday. And now you may be saying, but technically weren't you supposed to turn them in May 12th, I think you just said? Yes, but that class was being led by my advisor, who doesn't really care when you turn in the things. And there's another thing that came up that will explain why I only turned it in just now. But basically that I just was talking about different aspects of a particular page from the Rare Book and Manuscript Library that's here in our main library on campus for the University of Illinois. And yeah, I just wrote a paper about that and some of the things you could tell from that paper that went beyond just reading what the page itself said, but actually looking at the page and things going into its construction, right? The materiality, that's what the class was all about. So then getting back to why did I only just turn it in now? So one of the reasons was last week, my sister-in-law was graduating, so she got her master's in design studies, I think is the right term, and that was from Harvard. So we went up there and also took a trip to Vermont. That was cool. And yes, so there you go. So that was 1 week that I wasn't working on this paper. The reason I didn't turn it in initially on May 12th is because I was still writing my citizenship paper and my kind of rough draft of the Cordoba article. The social construction of space paper I actually did turn in like a week early, so that's good. In terms of, so basically because I took 4 classes this semester, which was kind of too much, because it wouldn't have been too much if I hadn't had anything else happening, but we also closed on a house this May, so that was another thing that was taking up a decent amount of time, first looking for houses and then going through doing random things associated with that. So hopefully in the future I'll have maybe a better setup besides just these walls here. But it might just be completely random and just as good as this setup, even if it's very different. So that was another thing that was taking up a decent amount of time, or at least brain power. And lastly, and perhaps most interestingly, was I had a opportunity to translate a Portuguese, let me correct. So it was a map written with Latin captions of Brazil, but only northern Brazil, because it was from the 1640s when the Dutch were ruling part of Brazil, the northern part of Brazil. And so this was a map that was up from that time period, and the text along the bottom of the map was in Latin. And because of the class I had taken last semester, the kind of introductory history class for the PhD program, and it was the class where I started my Cordoba project. And in that class, the teacher for that class, the professor, works with Brazil, basically, to do a short answer there. And he needed this map translated, or he wanted to have it translated for part of a book that he was trying to turn in. And so he asked, since I had been in that class and he knew that I studied a time period and knew Latin, he asked if I wanted to translate that for money. And so I did. But that took like a whole week of work, basically, because my Latin is not the best, but it was passable. So I was able to do, like, as we communicated, a rough cut of the translation. But it did take a considerable amount of time, and so I wasn't really able to work on anything else that week when I was translating, and that's what I did basically the week between turning in my other papers and going to the graduation. So maybe even a week and a half of just mostly translating. So that's why I didn't get around to doing the materiality of manuscript paper until just finishing it and turning it in yesterday. I probably could have done it maybe like half a week earlier, but since there wasn't a sharp deadline, I kind of was taking a little bit of time with it. Okay, so that's basically the academic update, and why I've waited this long to do it, even though some of you might be saying, surely he should give us an update. The semester has been over for weeks. Technically, yes, but in terms of was I actually completely finished with it? No. So that's where I've been and what I've been doing. So I guess looking forward to the summer, the things that we're going to be working on are some projects associated with the house. So our apartment lease doesn't come end until the beginning of August, so we're kind of just slow moving across. It's all the way across town, you know, like a whole 15-minute drive. It's kind of good to live in a small place sometimes. So that's one thing that we'll be doing this summer. Also, I have a summer teaching job with Upward Bound, is a program through the university, which I won't explain in this video, but you know, that's the name, trio Upward Bound. So I'm going to be teaching some U.S. history this summer. For that, it's just 2 days a week, Tuesday and Thursday, for not very long. And that'll only be a handful of students in that. So that shouldn't be a terribly strenuous part-time job there, but it'll still be good to do some teaching and just, you know, review some U.S. history is always good since I live in the United States and it's pretty relevant generally. And then also there are some more, so like I said, the Cordoba article was just a rough draft, so I'll probably be trying to read a few more secondary sources, a couple more primary sources, and kind of re-going through my notes to make sure I haven't left anything out from that. And that's kind of the big project that at least all these projects are the ones that I want to get done in June mostly. And if I have completed these by the end of June, there might be additional projects in July, but you know, we'll just kind of see how it goes. So that's what my summer is looking like, and that is also what my past semester has looked like. So it was good to do 4 classes, I think, because I will be TAing in the fall for the university, and there wasn't a lot of actually class options that I really was excited about. So I'll do an update video on that one when I finalize that at the beginning of next semester in the fall. But yeah, it was good that I went ahead and challenged myself this semester by taking 4 classes, even though it didn't really finish out in the timeline that I had wanted, but you know, it was all right. And I did accomplish a lot of good work towards my, like I said, one of my minor fields I came up with, and I made progress in my Cordoba article, which counts toward my major field, you know, and just learned some very interesting skills and things like that. So all that to say, good semester, I think. Stressful at times, packed a lot in, but I think it's gone well enough at least. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. And like I said, if you want videos specifying more information about any one of those topics that I mentioned, like if you're like, I really want to know more about that paper you wrote for the materiality of manuscripts class, and I would love a video about it, then you can put a comment there and I'll probably make that video. Similar for any of my other classes, if you want more of a breakdown on some of the things I learned in them or what I wrote about in those different classes, I could probably make that happen. So yeah, just good to have you guys tune in, and hopefully, as always, my customary sign off. Hopefully I'll make more videos more frequently, and probably at this point you guys are like, you're never going to, but maybe I will, because it's the summer and things are different now. Because as I've just said, my summer is not that full, or maybe I've just said that it is very full. I'll leave that up to your interpretation. I'm just a historian, so I only interpret things after they happen, not ahead of time. All right, then. Good to see everyone. Hopefully you can subscribe, like, dislike if you're just sick of watching my videos, although most people probably would have just stopped a long time before getting to this point of the video if they were sick of it. So, you know, there's that. And I'll stop rambling now, but yeah. Good night, and have a good rest of your summer if you're on summer break. And if you're not quite on summer break, push through those last few weeks to make it there. All right. See everyone.